This is the President McCormack Podcast with your host, Mark McCormack.
Let me ask you the first question.
Okay.
You work for Tony Robbins.
Yes.
Did you like it?
Yes.
Why?
It was exciting. It was the wild, wild west. I loved it because Tony allowed us to be fearless. Mm-hmm. So I had every kind of human being on the planet to coach, and it was every day. I mean, I'd have someone different every 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I like variety. I get bored very easily, and you don't get bored in that environment. There were some challenges. I mean, it's a challenge to work for Tony, I won't lie. It's a big organization. He has a different structure corporately. It's not run typically. It's kind of a village mentality. Mm-hmm. I didn't like that. I prefer knowing line of sight on command and how to win. Mm-hmm. So that was a little bit challenging. But the variety and the intensity, and we were always getting new insight through new world leaders and new healers, and it was always wide open. Like it was go. And let's check it out. And I loved that.
So how does his organization work? Like, I know very little about Tony Robbins, to be fair.
Cool.
So when you pay, do you pay for like a membership and then it comes with access to people like you and like different coaches, or how does it all work?
There are different programs and different options within the company. So if you start out the base level, there's product. So you can get his stuff online. You can get digital downloads of his content. And he's got 50 years of content, so there's a lot. And from there, you can step up and you can go to Unleash the Power Within, which is a 3.5-day event. It's kind of like an appetizer of everything he does that they offer. And it's pretty powerful. That first night when you get there, you actually do a true firewalk. And it's a distance with 10,000 other people. And that's a really powerful way to start an event. So those 3.5 days are very life-changing for people. The thing I love about how Tony delivers it, it's an amalgamation of a lot of different people's thoughts, but he is really good at distilling it down and making it a deliverable that people can apply. So with clients, when they'd go to the event, their lives would be so significantly changed, we could bring them back to it anytime. And even today, I talk to clients that I coached that were in the Robbins environment, and we'll get on a call and I can take them right back to those moments and they can access those changes again. So I loved that. Then from there, you can either go to Business Mastery, which is his business program. Very, very successful. That's the division my son ran. And then if you want to do that, let's say you sign up for Business Mastery, you get a coach for 3 months. You get to try the coaching for a 3-month window. If you decide to move forward, you keep that coach, you re-enroll for a year. They're all year-based contract typically. Yeah. If you want to do life and wealth, you go to Fiji and you do a whole life and wealth program there, which is really cool. I haven't had the opportunity to go there, but Brooke's been several times. Jimmy's been. A lot of my friends have gone. Didn't work out where I could ever get to Fiji when they were doing that. And that comes with 3 months of coaching. Then they also have standalone coaching. So if you decide you go to Unleash the Power Within and you just want to go straight into a coaching relationship, you can do that.
Okay.
And he had about 150 coaches when I left.
Because he doesn't coach at all, right?
No, he does, but there's a huge waiting list. It's usually about, last time I heard it was 15 years to get into coach with him, and it's $1 million.
Oh, wow. Like a year? Or
I don't know what the terms are. I never got into the terms of what Tony's coaching agreement was. But he, I know he coached. He's one of the only people to ever coach 4 standing presidents. And so he's coached Nelson Mandela. I mean, he's been in the orbit of all the world leaders and had influence in those spaces. So I have massive respect for that.
So the profile of the person that's going to pay $1 million to have him coach him, why?
Well, it's funny you asked that. I had the pleasure of being one of his platinum partner coaches, and they pay about $150,000 to $200,000 a year to be in that program. They get direct access to Tony. So they get, I think they have 4 major adventure trips that they go on with Tony and Sage. He does special things with them. And I got to coach a lot of those guys, and they're high-level players in the world. And the challenge that I was just stunned with, it didn't matter how much money they had, their lives were shit shows. They were unhappy. they hated their spouse, or they didn't have a spouse, or they'd been through multiple spouses. They lost the passion for their life. I mean, you get to a certain degree of money and money stops being your motivator. Like, it's just like, how much can you get?
Yeah.
And so beyond that, I got to coach them on how to create a life that they want to live in, and taking money out of the equation. What do you want? So that was kind of a big eye opener for me. And still awesome people, but still in suffering, just like you and me. You know, they still have to do the same shit every day we do, but they just have more complex problems. They have a lot more people demanding from them when you get to that level of income and that degree of success. And so your life stops being your own to a large degree. And I think that's why when you see people of Tony and Steve Jobs and these guys become so protective or isolated, like they have security. When Tony walks into a room, there's people around him. And I never understood why. I thought that was kind of an ego move. It's not. I mean, they get bombarded and attacked, and then you have random wingnuts that come out of the woodwork that have a grudge. You know, some person that heard something he said 25 years ago, never let it go. So I get it. Their world is different.
Yeah.
It just is.
Would you consider him your boss in the organization?
Not really. He was pretty removed.
He's just the leader of the whole thing, right? Okay.
Yeah. Now we met, we would see him and we do things with him, but it was more, he's pretty removed. That's where Brooke was a director. My brother was a director. There were about 4 or 5 directors that ran all the different divisions. Yeah. And then they would do executive meetings with Tony.
Okay.
And so they met with him. So he would meet with them and then they would take it down to their people.
So is he pretty active in the organization, or is he more standoffish now?
That's a really interesting question.
How old is he?
He's my age. He's 64.
Okay.
He's going to be 64. No, actually, I'm sorry. He's born on leap year, of course. The guy's born on leap year. He turned 64. Excuse me. Is he involved in his company? I want to say yes, but the answer is no. Yeah. Not to the degree that I think a lot of people would like to see. I mean, he's been doing it so long.
Yeah.
So my personal hallucination is I don't see him doing it a lot longer. He's had a lot of stress on his body. He's had a lot of health issues because he's so big, that tumor on his pituitary. I mean, you can't be that big and not have it weigh on you. So he's had a lot of issues with mercury poisoning. And so he's had a lot of physical stuff that he deals with. But I just don't, they have a baby now, and I just don't see him wanting to do this forever. It's a big lift. I mean, he's blown out his vocal cords more than once, where he had to grow back new vocal cords. The guy's an anomaly.
Wow.
He's a real anomaly. And when you see him, when he's engaged, he is 120% engaged. And so he gives everything in each moment that he's present on stage. And I don't know if he's still doing 180 days a year. I don't think so. When COVID happened, I think COVID actually was a gift, because he created that big, giant, multi-million-dollar stage, that digital thing that he created. I think that's helped.
Yeah.
I think that's helped him.
Yeah. Because imagine a man at his stature, he wants to start getting his time back. Or, well, not even time back. He's going to start spending his time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think he does.
He has a young family?
He has a grown family, and then he and Sage have a new baby that they had about 2 years. I think she's 2 now.
Is that a second wife kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe they had her through a surrogate. But they really wanted to have, Sage really could not have kids and really wanted one, and so they finally figured out how they were going to do it, and now they have a baby.
Yeah, so. Cool.
I don't know, that just makes my ears down thinking about having a baby right now. Nope, not for me. But
well, I'm 42, and we've been joking around amongst my age group, right? And it's like I would be unhappy if someone handed me my own baby right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I believe there's a reason that it's designed the way it is. I really do.
Yeah.
I learned that when I got this new puppy. Asha had unexpected puppies after the last Ludus. And I thought, oh, how fun will it be? I'll get 2. They'll have playmates. I can do 1 really well, but let's do 2.
Yeah.
2 is gnarly. It's nuts. And as I was, I've got this baby dog running around, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if I had a kid right now, I'd lose it. Yeah. I don't think I could do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, more power to them, but they also have the money to have, I'm sure they have multiple nannies. And I mean, I don't think it's not how you and I'd have to do it.
Right.
So.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
So through all your coaching, What do you think the biggest problem between married couples is?
Just off the top of my head, without fully analyzing that, I want to say communication.
Why is that?
Because I think that when we get married, I believe that we move into that familiarity breeds contempt kind of concept. And so we get lazy in our relationship. We take it for granted. And when we do that, we stop respecting and valuing the person we're communicating with. So we look through the lens of everything that's wrong with them instead of when we met them, everything that was right. And there's a quote, Tony, speaking of Tony, that really impacted my world in the marriage space. And that is that if we do in the end what we did in the beginning, there would be no end. And so what I believe happens is I believe we get lazy, emotionally and romantically lazy. I think sexually we get lazy. We get into ruts where we go, it's Saturday night, same exact thing every week. When we have a lot of little kids, that goes out the door because everybody's tired. So I think that we stop valuing the other person, the most important person, and we start getting sloppy in our communication. And I think that it creates a lot of issues, unnecessary issues.
Yeah, I can see that. I find it odd that some people just won't ask for what they want. Do you find that a lot when you coach people?
Yeah. I struggle with that sometimes. I'll struggle with that if I have someone volatile on the other end. So there are people in my world, in my family, and different people in my orbit that have a tendency, their triggers can be volatile. Mm-hmm. And so if I am uncertain about how they're going to respond to the ask or the comment or the feedback, I might refrain from jumping into that because I don't want to open up. I don't want to get filleted. I don't want to have an argument. And so I might resist that. That's the first thing. And the second thing is I don't think a lot of people believe they deserve it. And so there's a conflict, and I really want you to meet me there, but I'm not sure maybe I shouldn't ask for that. Maybe I don't deserve it. Yeah. So I think you're correct, but I also think it's because they don't feel safe to ask.
Yeah. How do you walk someone over the bridge to you deserve everything you want mentally?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think first is just being able to have them identify that that's how they feel. Because one of the things we learned through Tony is that human beings all get down to the same two basic human needs. And the two issues that they battle ultimately at the end of the day is, am I good enough and will I be loved? Those are the two consistent human crises, if you will. And so if you know that when you go into coaching, that that's ultimately where they're going to be or they're at, then you can help them start to build it back by seeing who they really are. And so part of what I love about being a coach, because I was thinking about what we were going to talk about, I had no idea where we were going to go with this, but I was thinking, why do I love coaching? Because somebody just asked me, I talked to one of the guys that spoke at one of the Ludus's. He was a motivational speaker, and he called me. We were talking about why I coach and what I love about it. And I like being able to help someone move through that doubt that they deserve it to, hell yeah, I deserve it, and why I deserve it, and when I deserve it, and when I get to be the best version of me, and the world around me changes, and I get to help other people change their world. And so seeing that light going on and holding up the mirror and watching them finally see their true essence, that's why I love What. Because that's something I believe that we've done a really good job of in the beginning of the experience, is helping men see their true value. Because I think you guys get beat up, and I think you have a really bad rap a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. So I love holding up that mirror and helping you see who you really are, and empowering you to believe it, anchoring it, and then over time helping you not ever have to question it again. Yeah. So that's powerful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at our society, let's just talk about the American society. Do you think we're on the decline in America, or do you think we're still progressing?
I love that question. Because you and I are similarly wired in this context. I think right now, based on where we are at in this exact moment, that we are currently in a decline. I think that if we don't turn it around somewhat soon, our decline is going to be bigger than anybody anticipated. Yeah. That's just my personal opinion. I think that we also have to go and hit our knees to come back and fix it. So I believe it's a necessary evil. I think that a lot of evil's been exposed. I think it's real uncomfortable. I think that we have to see it. I think people don't want to see it. So I think we still have some society that's got their head in the sand about a lot of really seriously honest things that are happening, true things that are out there.
Yeah.
They don't want to see it. And so we have a lot of people that are staying silent right now when that's the last thing we should be doing.
Yeah, I feel like there's zero humility in our country.
There is.
Like zero.
And zero self-respect. We've lost it.
Yeah.
Remember the golden rule? I don't know if you were raised with it, but I was. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto self, right? Have you ever heard that in the last 10 years?
No.
No. They took it out of the schools. They've taken out of the lexicon of our kids and the behaviors we've been teaching. We've lost that feeling of respect for our elders, for the police department, for our first responders. There's zero respect.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the most frightening piece, because when you lose respect, we're on the cusp of anarchy. There's no sense of authority.
Yeah.
And so that to me is the worst thing I'm watching, is there's zero respect.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just terrifying. How do you not have that?
How do you fix it? You ever thought about it?
Yeah, I think about it a lot.
I actually think our country is irredeemable.
We're on the edge.
Yeah.
And my family believes that. I'm holding on to hope. Because to me, my brother and I were talking about this was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. We're grieving the loss of our country. And I think a lot of people are subconsciously in that space, like you and me, that we know we're witness to what's happening. And it's so out of our control. It's like watching a train wreck and you can't stop. And so as someone in the personal development space, as someone who believes in fifth dimensional thinking, I do believe we can get there. I just don't know if it's going to be in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I believe that the work we do, in Watt, and the when you ask how are we going to fix it, it's one human at a time. It's going to take one person at a time to take a stand and say no more. And the more we do that, and the more we recognize that there are more of us that actually have more power than we believe, if we all aligned, do you realize we have the largest standing army in the world? No one could take us out with the amount of people that have access to the right to bear arms. Mm-hmm. So if we decided that this is no longer working for us and we could take it back, would we? And that's the question right now. And that's what's making me sad. I'm not seeing enough people want to take it back.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it starts with our federal government, right? Like we won't protect our borders, which is so funny, right? Because it's like the first thing for your country to be a country is a border.
It's like it's like country 101. How do you miss that?
Yeah, I don't know. But then you look at just the sheer amount of money that goes to our federal government. Elon Musk was giving a speech the other day, and he was talking about how basically the only way to deregulate things is to go to war. It's the only time the government actually undoes all their stupid rules. Because eventually you get to the point where you have no freedom. There's just a rule for everything.
Yep.
And I just see us barreling down that road, and no one's even questioning it.
I don't see us getting out of this without civil war. I don't see it happening without civil war. And so that's where I go into, holy crap, where are we going? Yeah. Because it's so unraveled and people are so unhinged that the disparity, they did such a good job using COVID to cause so much disruption and disconnection in family. And when COVID happened, I don't know if we ever talked about this, I was astounded at how fast the world buckled. It wasn't just the United States, the entire planet buckled. And I had to step back and ask, how do you do that? How do you brainwash an entire civilization? Yeah. And when you get into what it takes to brainwash, it was so radical. I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, they did this so well. Fear and disconnection, creating hate, division. Those two things, you can brainwash anybody. Yeah. And that's why Hitler did such a great job. As a leader, he was an exceptional leader, and he did a really good job. But his outcome was evil. And so when we look at that, when you can watch a whole country annihilate millions of people and be justified in their mind, that was pure brainwashing. Well, we did it to a planet through fear and division. And so if we're going to take it back, we have to empower who we are. We have to remember who we are. And we have to stand in that space. And it's going to be scary. We've been lax for the last 50 to 100 years. We've missed a lot of those battles, and in our complacency is where we're at. So I think figuring out who I really am, and then the other thing, and this is a scary thing to say, is what am I willing to stand for?
Yeah.
What am I really willing to take a stand for? And I don't think anybody's had to do that in a very long time.
No, I was thinking about that the other day with social media, actually. Mm-hmm. I had a friend make a comment to me. He just goes, Mark, I'm kind of envious of your social media because you just post whatever you feel like posting.
Yeah.
And at first I heard that, I was like, well, yeah, of course. And then I started listening. I was like thinking about what he was actually saying. And he's like, everything he puts out is so curated.
Right.
And it's like, can't offend this, can't offend that, got to move here, got to move here. And it really just blaws out everything, really. Right. His content is fine, but it's not engaging, it's not exciting, it's just content, you know?
Well, we've lost the ability to debate.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're like me. I would love to have an awesome debate with someone that has a full-blown different opinion. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. Because in the old days, remember the respect? We could have that, and I was raised that way. I was raised to be able to have discourse and disagree. We don't have that anymore. Now it's against the law to disagree. And so when you get to that point, that's where you know you're under a tyrannical rule. When I can't disagree with you, which is what's taking place all over the place right now, and we're watching a lot of unbelievable lawfare happening. That's what that is. And if people don't recognize it's happening to him, to one person, they need to understand it's the precedence happening to us.
Yeah.
And so if they're going to rob him of his right to free speech and to defend himself, everybody needs to be real aware it's coming for you too. Yeah. And so in that dialogue of social media, I know there are a lot of people that are influencers and the influencer psychology, and I don't want to rob them of their effort, but it's a lot about just getting followers. I want to know, how is it that you're adding value?
Right.
What lives do you really change in that TikTok video?
Yeah.
How many people really make lifelong change? So we've gotten to a microwave society. We've gotten to a society that doesn't want to take a stand. We've got people that can't have a disagreement because anything outside of their viewpoint is racist. You know, there's a whole host of this.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we can't have a discourse about anything.
Yeah.
And so if we don't fix it, you're right. We're going down in flames, baby. Yeah. It's like watching Rome burn.
Which is wild, right? When you're in the middle of it.
It is. How do we today, you and me, how do we change it? Yeah. And I think that's a place for a lot of us, especially the warrior spirit. We know there's a battle. We just don't know where to go to fight it. It's like, I want to do it, but where? And where's the leader to take us there? And that's what we're waiting for. That's what I feel like we're all standing around waiting for, is someone to take up the stand, take up the charge like in Braveheart, and just go and lead the people. We don't have that.
Yeah, no, we don't. We definitely don't have it in our government. Our government's bad.
It's scrap it and start over.
Yeah.
It's so bad. The doubt we have in it, the lack of faith in their ability to have our best interest is gone. I don't know how they get up and go to work every day. I just don't.
I don't either.
With a clear conscience.
They're just openly...
Yeah.
Just openly screwing us.
Blatantly.
Yeah. And no one cares. I actually think, like, I teach investing classes, right? I actually teach one today at noon. And it just blows my mind how people think that investing is complicated, right? They've gone through school. I mean, these guys that have college degrees, I've met engineers, and they think that investing is complicated. And it drives me crazy because it's like this whole industry's been born out of, well, that must be complicated. And so I need an expert to pay for it. You know what I mean? And it's like, just study it.
Right.
You know, and I don't think we're taught that in school. Mm-mm. So my point with that too is, like, you know, the thing that I'm doing to help society is basically raising my kids the way that they should be raised.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that.
You know, we homeschool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like,
power to you, man.
I mean, it's so funny because a lot of my life, I just make choices and do things and make choices and do things. And it's really just in the moment, what's the best choice in the moment. And so when Michelle decided to do homeschooling, you know, it wasn't like we care about, you know, critical race theory, or we didn't like where the schools are going. We didn't like their teachers. Right. I mean, there was a couple of teachers that didn't like that all that much, but it wasn't the catalyst. Then once we pulled them out, well, we were forced to pull them out through COVID, and then we continued it is what actually happened. Then our kids just started flourishing, and they learned so much. You know, they're really, really well educated in history and like religion and sociology and the stuff that we really want to put into them so they can understand things. And I've had conversations with my friends where they're just like, well, aren't you worried about your kids being weird or not having friends? And I'm like, not really. I'd much rather have my kids converse with adults and learn how to interact with adults.
Exactly.
And just skip over all that. And my
That's how I
daughter's
raised my kids.
really.
I didn't get to homeschool them. I wanted to. I shouldn't say that. I loved the idea of it. But I was raised by a man who raised us to question everything. We had dictionaries everywhere. This is pre-internet. And we were raised, if you ever seen Captain Fantastic, that was my life.
Oh, cool.
That was how that's how we were raised. Yeah. And so I want to honor the parents that have made that decision. And it's a hard decision to bring your kids home and raise them and homeschool. I know it's a lot. And at the same time that it's a lot, it is so beautiful to witness kids who have the ability to create their own thoughts, that know how to make a decision, how to make a choice, and make right choices. And you guys are empowering them. You are building the true leaders of tomorrow. Because when we look at the generation who all got a trophy, that's what we're witness to right now. There's a vacuum in our economic system because those kids don't want to work. Yeah. And I mean, not just a little don't want to work. They don't want to work at all. Yeah. And so they were taught, they don't even know how to make a decision. Your kids know how to make a decision. Yeah. And that's a gift. And those things you're talking about, that's what we should be teaching in school. Emotional maturity. How do we get emotional intelligence? Why aren't we teaching that to our kids? Why aren't we teaching them how to meditate and to control who they are and get connected to something that's more powerful than they are? All of that, to me, is where we need to go as a culture and a society. So all these parents that are homeschooling, I believe they need to. And at first, when my older son decided that he was going to homeschool my grandkids, I'll be full transparency. I'm like, oh, no. Because my school experience was awesome. I loved my school experience all the way through. I had a blast. But I grew up in a small beach community in San Clemente, and my lifestyle, it was awesome. Mm-hmm. We ran around. We didn't come home when the lights went on. It was like we just did whatever we wanted. It was beautiful. But you can't do that now. And so when Brooke made the decision to do that, I'm like full resistance. I'm like, no. And we were going at it. And there was a period of about, I want to say 6 months. And then one day he just goes, hey, Mom, can we go paddleboarding? And I'm like, sure. And he brought my younger son, who's equally like me in this dialogue. He takes his paddling and goes, okay, Mom, so here's the deal. I need you to back off on putting the kids in school. And I'm like, why? And he goes, you haven't done the research. Before I made the decision, I researched how public school systems got started and why. And he goes, the whole context behind it is not healthy. And what you're witness to today is the implosion of a really bad system. And I'm like, okay, so what's that based on? The public school system was based on creating it along the lines of the prison system. And it was to control the kids and also to be able to indoctrinate them. And so he just said, I don't want my kids any part of that kind of a system. And they started unschooling. And so anytime Bodie was enamored with whales, he went whale watching. He learned what whales ate. He learned how deep whales dove. He everything in his world was focused on that passion. He could speak more to whales than probably anybody you know. And then when he was done with that, he'd move to the next thing. And so they just kept moving him through his passion. And now it's fascinating what they can converse with. They can converse with any adult about politics. They could tell you about the Constitution more than anybody in our age bracket. I have honor for that. And I think that's what we need to do, because that's how we're going to change this.
We did the same thing. I used to teach them every now and again, and we call it American exceptionalism. And we used to go through the citizenship questions.
I love it.
Just go through all that. And I'm pretty sure my kids I bet they can get 90% on it right now. And it's been a year probably since we went over all that. But
that's so awesome.
It's the thing it was always interesting with me in America is I feel like we teach history so poorly. Because when I went on my Mormon, when I was Mormon, I went on Mormon mission, and it was like, I was in Scotland, and 14-year-old kids know more about world history than I ever even thought was possible. Yeah. And they're kind of like, from the ghetto, most of them. Right. And so you come back here in America, and it's like, you just don't teach that much in public school. The efficiency in public school is wild.
It's gone down so bad. Oh, so bad. I have friends that are teachers, one of which she just retired. Well, she had to retire in COVID. She couldn't do it anymore. It was just brutal what they went through. But she watched the evolution of the school system, and it was demoralizing to witness. And so she went from having a rational amount of students to like 40 kids in a class. And then you had to teach to the lowest common denominator. Yep. So anyone that was an exceptional student couldn't excel because they were always navigating to that lowest common denominator. And it's sad. It's sad to me. It's a missed opportunity.
Did your friends ever talk about it just being a big daycare?
Not so much. No, because the ones that I was talking to really took it. I mean, they were militant about adding value. I didn't get that sense, but they never felt fully supported, and they never felt they could really teach what they needed to teach.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I say it's a daycare, because of the after school programs and the preschool programs, right? Like, you can really drop your kid off there like 5:45 in the morning. You don't have to pick them up till about 5:15.
Not from the teacher's perspective, but from the parents, yeah. From the parents' perspective, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why everybody got unhinged when we had to bring everybody home during COVID. Everybody lost their mind because they didn't have to deal with them 8 hours a day while they're at work. Right. And so, it was a big eye-opener for a lot of people.
Yeah. I got an interesting question popped in my head.
Go ahead.
If you were coaching a man, what characteristics would you tell that man to find in a wife?
To look for in a wife. I'm not sure it's a one-size-fits-all answer, but I would want them to start with their own core values, what they value the most, and get them really clear on that, and then make sure that they find someone that aligns with that. Going back to your original question, I think one of the things that causes a lot of conflict is when people fall in love, they kind of shelve their values, because typically it's an attraction. Usually it's a physical attraction that kind of gets you rolling. And then you kind of get into this relationship, and then you find ways to justify this is the one, and you let go of what's really, really important in the background. So I think that if I was going to tell a man to look for a woman what to value, it would have to be the top three in their values, somewhere in that family. I don't think you could have an honest relationship with someone that doesn't hold integrity high, or honesty as a high value. So I don't know that you could have a really good relationship with a woman if she didn't have that. But it would be dependent upon what they value, because what you would find valuable in a woman, Jimmy might not.
Yeah.
Right? You might have different values that really are important to you. And so I think when we also look at who someone's dating, we can make an assessment based on our values. Oh, she's not right for him. She's not good enough for him. And I've heard that with relationship to a couple people we know. Yeah. And it's like, but wait a minute. She's perfect for him because that's his values. What she has is what he values the most. So that's why you're not as attracted to her, why you don't think she's the right one. But that's because you're looking through the lens of, is she the right one for you? Yeah. And so I think it depends on that.
I can see that. That makes sense. I guess when I was thinking about it, it's kind of like when you get married, you're really picking a business partner, right?
How many people think that way?
None.
No, right.
Very few, right?
I know.
Well, anyone that's getting married for the second time, probably, right? They understand it better.
You hope so, but
yeah, and a lot of this is you don't know what you don't know. But I always thought I think it's crazy. I don't know if it's a hot take or not, when married couples have separate bank accounts, because it's like a built-in physical reminder that you don't trust the other person.
That's a sticky. There's so many thoughts on that. I know from my own personal experience. Because I've been married more than once, and my first two husbands, you just did that. You just blended accounts. But ironically, the one that nailed me the most was the one that refused to merge bank accounts. And it was always in the back of my mind. There was that question mark, why? And I think that for him, I know his story was that his wife prior to me had damaged him so much financially, he was never going to allow that to happen again. And there was truth to that. But at the same time that he's saying that, he's also inferring you're going to do it too.
Right.
And so it really wasn't even that. It was because he was doing things he didn't want me to have eyes on. And if I had access to the account, I'd have eyes on it. And so my feeling was legit. And his reasons, although the story was one thing, were to hide. Yeah. And so there's a danger zone there. I don't know if it's bad to have two separate accounts, but both people should have eyes on both accounts. Yeah. Like there should be reporting that you guys both see, because you are a business. Would you keep your numbers from your business partner?
No.
No. So in that, maybe you keep your separate accounts, but there should be visibility on both, always. Yeah. And I've started to have a hard stand on that, because I've just watched too many people hide there, and that's where things go sideways.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That is also a breeding ground, right? Stuff.
How are you going to do anything if you don't have the money to put into it?
Right.
And people find a way. But full transparency, if I'm going to be in a relationship again with somebody, I want full transparency because that's true intimacy to me.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, are you truly intimate?
Right.
Really? Because you still got doors closed everywhere that I know you can't see that. No, I don't want you to know that. Nope, you can't have control of that. I also struggle a lot of times with, and this might be a hot topic, so let's play with this, where the man controls money and the wife has to ask permission to have access to the funds to do things. I don't feel like that is a fair partnership.
Yeah.
So I think that in a lot of different religious formats, they've been taught that's acceptable. And it's been my experience in coaching thousands of people, that is not a fair way to navigate.
So what's the symptoms of doing that in a relationship?
Symptoms of, how would you witness somebody else doing it?
No, I mean, like, why is it bad for the woman? And what poison does that kind of introduce into the relationship?
She becomes an employee or a servant. It means that, I can't do that. I would never tolerate that and allow that. And I hated every time I was in a position I had to be that. Because I feel disempowered. Mm-hmm. And so there's this belief that women that stay at home, and I really resent when this conversation comes up because men, she's just a stay-at-home mom. And I have done this for many clients where I've gone and broken down how much it would cost to replace one woman raising 3 kids. And it's on par with about $150,000 to $180,000 if you had to replace every job they do. And most men don't think in terms of that. And so when a wife is a stay-at-home mom, she is dependent on his income, but her value is equally or more important, and they just don't know how to monetize it. So if we gave her a paycheck, if this was a business, he's the boss, and she gets paid, she'd get paid a hell of a lot of money. Yeah. But if she's a partner and he controls the money and she has to constantly ask for permission to get it, now it feels like you've become a servant. Yeah. I have to ask permission. Now I'm subservient to you. We're not equal partners. And I agree that in a business you have one decision maker. That's how I think that it should run. So I agree that in the final big decisions, it should be a collaboration. But if we have to come down to one decision, probably going to lean into the guy to make that one. But for all basic life decisions, I think there should be equal play in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think getting as close to equal as you can is perfect. That's where Michelle and I sit, right? We talk about all sorts of stuff. Not perfect, but we're not really either asking each other permission either.
No, it's a discussion.
Yeah.
It's a collaboration. Should we? What do you think? Is it a good idea? Give me your feedback. It's like it is a business conversation. Yeah. So why can't we have that and make it collaborative and not argumentative and not diminish the person that isn't pulling in a paycheck?
Right.
Because without them doing that, you'd be paying a lot of paychecks. And so I'd love to help break that barrier within the community of couples where that's going on, because I end up coaching a lot of them, and I can't tell you how many people push back. And it's like, guys, I need you to understand something. This is going to be a long-term problem. And get communication around it. Maybe you don't have to have the same counts, but there should be there should be transparency. Yeah. That's why I don't believe there should be passwords on phones anymore. If I'm in a loving relationship with someone, there shouldn't be a lock on their computer or their phone. And so I think the same should be true with their account. Doesn't mean they should be able to go and pull all the money out. Maybe I can understand that, but they should have eyes on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it easier coaching married people or is it easier coaching single people?
Single people. The amount of times I'm referee is beyond astounding. The amount of times I've had to tell people to shut the F up is epic. Yeah. And how people talk to each other is mind-blowing to me. I watch people and the things they say and how they say it, and I'm like, whoa, just whoa. And so it is,
is that coming from both sides?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had to split people up. I couldn't coach them. I've fired couples because they were so damn toxic. And they wanted to stay in it. And so if they believe that's the only way they can be and that's what the best they got, I don't have any part in that. I can't. Yeah. It's ugly. It's painful. I've fired clients for that.
Yeah. Why do people act like that? It's a lot of, I guess it's a loss of respect, right?
Well, they don't have self-respect. So it's either fear, insecurity, uncertainty, lack of trust. But usually it comes back to they don't either honor the person they're talking to, goes back to our original question, and they lose control. They don't know how to get what they want. And so if you happen to be a high D person in a conversation and you're not getting what you want, a lot of times they go to loud, they go to angry, because they think they're going to push through it. And it's rare that you can do that in a loving relationship effectively. So I think it can come from frustration, not getting getting their point across, and going back to bad communication.
Yeah. You find a lot of couples that just don't talk a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll go for days and just kind of get in their ruts and not move.
Again, it goes back to that laziness. Yeah. They get complacent or they get resentful, and they don't know what to do with it, so they close off. They become roommates. I see a lot of relationships where they've moved away from being intimate partners and they become roommates.
Yeah.
And that's usually a precursor to people ending it.
Yeah. Do you think that happens when people have kids? Become roommates more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're not intentional about it, it's an easy, it's a slippery slope, because you have these little beings that you've created and you want to give them everything. And I think that oftentimes we prioritize somewhat badly. When we have kids, my belief is that the parents should still make that first relationship sacrosanct. That should be the first relationship that should be focused on and given priority. Mm-hmm. Second to that is the relationship with the kids. But I think that when we have kids, oftentimes, and I see a lot of women do this, tend to, not always, so it's not a general statement, but it does happen with more women. They flip the script and now everything's about the kids. Mm-hmm. And I've always been sensitive to that. I don't know why, but I did not want to change who they fell in love with when I had kids. So I didn't want to stop being that woman. I see a lot of women when they get pregnant and they have babies and they move into the soccer mom mode, they give up their sensual nature. It's like all of a sudden it's put in a closet. They have a justification for it. Well, I've got kids. I'm tired. I don't have time. And they give up that sexual identity.
Yeah.
And over time, I think the partner will accept that because the kids are little. But it's not a healthy way to navigate. And I don't think it's a fair thing to do to your partner. And I also think it's a real injustice to your kids.
Yeah.
So I believe that couples need to make their relationship really important. And I think women need to stay in that space of being that haughty. You've got to go back to who were you when you attracted them. And when I talk to clients who are struggling with women that are, I don't need to change, and I have a family member whose wife just presented him with that, I don't need to change. I don't need to have sex with you. Mm. That is ending, thankfully. On my end, I'm glad.
Yeah.
But I watched it play out. And I have a conversation with clients here's the deal with women. You can either keep and hold on to that belief and stay that way because you're totally entitled to do that. But please understand, when your husband has an affair or leaves you, you're going to go back to the woman you were when you met him in the first place. You're going to go get hot. You're going to lose weight. You're going to cut your hair. You're going to start wearing hot clothes. You're going to start being more fun. Why aren't you doing it with him?
Yeah.
And that loops us back to that quote by Tony. If you do what you do in the end, what you did in the beginning, there would be no end. Yeah. And so if more people could recognize that, and if men could stay that hot guy that was always after him, texting him, sending him flowers, doing cool things for him, surprising him, that shouldn't end either. Making them feel seen. And I think over time, that lazy factor comes in, that familiarity comes in, and we start giving up on the thing that matters most, and we get sloppy. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah. I like what you said about the relationship between the husband and wife, the most important for the kids.
It always is.
Because we do that all the time. You know, I kiss Michelle, I grab Michelle, I do all that stuff in front of the kids. And they do a little bit of it, but they also love it.
They do.
You know?
They do love it. You know what kids don't love is when mom and dad don't ever speak to each other.
Yeah.
And if people think they're not catching that, they're totally wrong. Kids read energy before they read anything.
Yeah.
And so if the energy in the home is that mom doesn't like dad and dad doesn't like mom, but because they're not yelling, we're good, it's a lie. You're not teaching them to love and to stay because it's for the kids. That is the worst thing to put on a kid.
Yeah.
If they know you hate each other and you're staying because of me, that sucks.
Yeah.
So I believe that as a society, we've gotten distorted in a lot of our relationships. And it goes all the way back to that piece of, do I love me? Am I enough? And what do I deserve?
Yeah.
You can check time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're good.
Okay. That's part of how they destroyed our country, is they've broken down the family. They've taken out the power of the family. They thought that they could give it to the teachers, and unfortunately, parents gave it to the teachers because it was daycare, because it's easier, because I'm tired. That's what we do. And so we abdicated and gave our kids away to people who really didn't have true best interest at heart. Or if they did, they were blind too.
Yeah.
And so we're in a society.
Or they weren't that good at it.
Or they weren't that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's.
And that's another big part, right? Even if you intend to do what's right, you give them to a teacher all day, they got their own stuff going on. Plus the curriculum's super light. We're not very, very, very rarely where we challenge in grade school.
Put our kids up against a Japanese society.
We're destroyed.
Oh, they couldn't even hold a candle. It wouldn't even happen.
Yeah.
And when Chance went to Japan, it was a huge eye-opener. He was there for about 5 years. And the thing this is why it goes back to that respect. When he was first on the ground there, he was running through a park. He was working out. It was like 4 or 5 in the morning. And there was a really old guy. And the parks, he said, were pristine, like immaculate, and which blew him away. But he's running through this park, and there's this old guy in full splits, and Chance is a martial artist, so he was paying attention. He's watching. He's like, why is this guy? And it's dewy outside, so there's a mist. And the old guy's full splits, and he's got a pair of scissors, and he's trimming the grass in the park. And Chance runs by, and he thinks, that is really bizarre. And he's good, runs for a really long time, comes back. The guy's now in a new place in the park, same position, splits, cutting another spot of grass. Well, Chance had seen him do it a couple times, and Chance finally went up and asked him, why are you doing that? And he says, because I respect the space, and I want it to look good for my neighbors. And so he made it his personal mission to handcraft the park out of respect for the people around him. And one of the things that Chance was blown away by is he said, Mom, in Japan, the respect for each other and for themselves is so high. If you leave a tip, they don't want you to leave a tip, but if you do, you're American. They chased me down 4 blocks to give it to me. He said, if you if you drop a piece of trash on the ground and someone watches it, they'll come up and pick it up for you out of respect for you, because they know that you didn't do it on purpose.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's
they clean the baseball parks when they're done and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah. It's crazy. And so as a culture, we as Americans have gotten down that angry blame game that they've pushed us into. They've groomed us for this. Yeah. And we're witness to what's happening with it. It blows me away. Yeah. When I hear how people talk to each other, getting on and off the plane, in a fast food restaurant, watching somebody walk by an elderly woman and push her out of the way, I want to come out of my skin. It's like, I'm like, no, but that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And so I think that we need to learn how to teach our kids by being the example of love.
Yeah.
Hug on her, kiss her, bend her over, like, do what you do.
Yeah.
They need to see it. They need to know it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, even all the way down to like, just us holding hands in public, or, sitting next to each other on the couch, or cuddling on the couch watching movies and stuff. Mm-hmm. My family's kind of funny. We're still, I keep on saying I have little kids. I really don't. I've got a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and an 8-year-old, right?
Well, they're still little.
My little one's little.
Yeah, they're still
but they, we're kind of at the point, I mean, like if I sit on the couch to watch the show, like a show or something like that, which is kind of rare, but like they're just all over me,
right,
They
want to
like,
cuddle.
Yeah, everyone's just kind of, and it's awesome, but it's hard because I'm starting to feel my oldest, like last night, so Michelle's out of town, right? She gets back today. And so I had my son jump in bed with me, right? And then my daughter wanted to sleep on the floor. Then my other daughter's 14, like just didn't want to come in there, right? And I was like, oh, well, you sure, babe? She's just like, I like my own bed. And I'm like, today's the day.
Through that. It's gonna happen.
Today's the day.
But here's what I want to encourage you with. Yeah, it's hard, and it is a little weird for a while. But the thing that's one of my biggest gifts in my life is the friendship I now have. I was not my kid's friend growing up. I was their mom. I was pretty adamant about that. I had friends that believed they were just going to be buddies with their kids. It's one way to go. I don't believe it teaches them the respect they need to have for authority. Yeah. So it goes back to that respect thing again. But it's so, my kids and I are so tight. We're peers. Brooke and I work together, and we love working together, and we do really well. We've done it for a long time. Chance and I love to hang out. They want to spend time with me. When they get to that place, you get them back in a different capacity. And then the piece behind that is you get to snuggle with their kids. And so you don't lose it forever. So don't mourn that loss too long. Yeah. Because there's a new evolution behind it. And each one is so cool. And I know what kind of dad you are. You're going to embrace them all and you're going to have a blast. Yeah. But when they get older and you get to sit down and have totally deep conversations, and I did with my kids when they were little anyway, but to do it, get their opinions and get their, because we're a pretty animated family like you. We love good debate. We love talking art, sex, politics, religion. We go there. And because that's how I was raised. And I love having that with them. I just wish I could have more people have that with their kids. Yeah. Because there's nothing like it. Yeah. There's nothing like it.
So what would your advice be to me for being a good dad to a 14-year-old? Almost 15-year-old, yeah.
Girl?
What does she need?
Your presence. She's going to push back a little bit, especially in front of her friends. But I would say I would make it mandatory to have a consistent date with her, whether she wants to or not. I would do crazy things like pull her out of school when she doesn't expect it. I would take her on trips, teach her how to travel. I would do a self-defense class with her. I would do things that start honoring her transition, because as you're going to want to pull her back and hold on to it, she's going to resist that. But if you go alongside her and go, okay, I see where you're at, and I want to see you be the best that is, let's go. Yeah. And you're that kind of dad, so I think you could maximize that. Yeah,
I agree. I'm mentally where I just want to stand next to her and do stuff with her. Yeah.
And it is different. Although I was a mom of boys, I always raised my boys to be independent, and I'm just trying to think, was there a point where I was really sad? I don't think so, because they were always I was always present. I mean, as much as I could. I mean, I have my own, my trauma, and a lot of drama is going on. Yeah. So those were gaps, but they always knew I was there. Yeah. Always. And with a girl, to know her dad is always there doesn't mean you have to be the loudest one walking in a big clown suit to school every day. Not that. You don't want to embarrass her all the time, but you also don't want her to let her know you see her publicly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can do that for sure. Tell me what you think about this. My brother thinks I'm crazy. I think it's funny, but I've been brainwashing my kids for years, right? So before they could even speak, I would tell them, don't do drugs, stuff like that, right? And so recently with all my kids, I've been discussing when they pick a spouse, how we should all be involved in that conversation, right?
True. Agree.
And I put a little asterisk, not even an asterisk, I put a little line out there. I'm like, hey, it's your choice, but if you bring me like my oldest daughter, if you bring someone to the house that you want to date, right? Just by bringing them to our house, you're showing them to me, and you've presented them to me as this is a potential, right? Doesn't mean like you think you're going to marry him, like that kind of stuff.
This is someone that I want to get to know.
Yeah, but don't bring me garbage. Right. Don't date garbage, right? So, bring me guys you think are dope. And then if you're like, hey, I think, this is someone I want to marry, we've been talking about it, right? Like ask me what I think about it. And I want to have an opinion and be able to mentor you into this thing. So I started doing that with all of my kids. My brother's like, your kids will never listen to you on that kind of stuff, because he never listened to his parents, which is fine. He turned out great, but he does have a rebellious kind of attitude towards things, right? And I just feel like with my kids, it's like if I can get them to understand who friends are and who foes are and who to trust and at what level, it just makes their life a lot better, and they'll avoid a lot of pitfalls.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think why wouldn't you do that?
Oh, I'm telling you.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, isn't that part of our parenting job? Whether they take full advantage of that or if they embrace it 100%, I doubt that.
Right, it's on them.
But it's a guideline, and it's a standard for them to measure. And if they don't have a standard, then they're going to the bottom of the barrel to figure it out. Yeah. So all you're doing is setting a standard that, hey, I love you enough to expect the best for you, And if I don't think that's happening, please understand my love for you is going to give me full ride and permission to tell you how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And that's from a place of love. Yeah. But because you've already shown her that her whole life, there won't be a question mark. It won't be this random, out of nowhere, you're coming to tell me what you think.
Right.
If that were the case, that'd be the problem. But you're not doing that. Mm-mm. You're showing them all along the way, my opinion matters. I've been down this road before you. Chance and I had this argument just recently. And I'm like, dude, you need to understand something. I've been here a lot longer than you. Yeah. And so I know more than you.
Exactly.
I know more than you by the nature of my experience. So yes, you can hold your opinion, but you might want to trust somebody who's been there, done that.
Right. Go to the person who has all the scars.
Right.
Right. I've already been cut over this. This is going to hurt if you do this.
Right. But free choice, you get to decide, but then you also get to live with the consequence of your choice.
Yeah.
And that's something else is don't always rescue.
Yeah.
And I don't think you do. But there are parents that when every time their kid blows it, they go into full. And I was one of those moms. Chance was a hard kid. And so he made a lot of people uncomfortable. I was always dancing to try and keep him from pissing people off. It's my biggest regret because he was just being this beautiful, large, light, living out loud human. And I tried to box him to make other people comfortable. As a mom, it's one of my biggest regrets. But one of the things that I did do is I taught both my kids, they get a right to their opinion. They get to argue with me. They can disagree with me. They have to do it with respect.
Yeah.
You do it with disrespect, and it's going to be an ugly experience, and they've had that. Yeah. But it's very rare that they disrespect me, almost virtually never. Yeah. It was when Chance was younger, he had a hard time with that. But now, if anybody even came close to disrespecting me, he would dismember them. I mean, it would be like so fast. Yeah. And so my boys they're my biggest champion, but that's also because I was there in it with them. Yeah. I always knew. And I think that for you, I would not listen to that advice because I don't necessarily agree with it. And it's not right for you with your kids. Yeah. It might be for him. Yeah. He's going to have a different experience with his kids. But that's his choice.
Well, it's funny to me. I get told a lot of advice and take almost none of it.
I know. Well, that's because you're a public person, and we both do. I get it too. Yeah. And I had to ask one day, why does everybody feel like they have to tell me what to do? What is that? You know, it's just that we have this nature of making everybody feel heard.
Yeah.
And you know what? And so I give them permission. And I've gotten better about stopping that because there was a point where I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need you to tell me what to do right now. But I gave them access by being open and trying to make them feel heard. So now they feel they can tell me everything. I had to fix that. But I think that it's just who you are.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We have to listen to our own guidance system. As I've gotten older, that's one of the things I've learned the most, is that every time I denied my intuition, I got pain. And so I've learned that, and this is something to teach your daughter, is those intuitive hits, do not deny them. I wish more women learned that early, because I believe we have, as the feminine, we have a unique guidance system that men don't have. Yeah. And so if we could teach more girls how to access that and to not make it wrong, I think we would help preserve them and keep them safer.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that going to that list, start teaching her what her intuition is and how to access it, and how to say no, to know that it's okay, because that all goes in alignment with that other piece.
Yeah. Yeah, we do a pretty good job of letting them say no.
But again,
I mean, it's hard with teenagers, right? Because they can say no, sometimes you got to kick them off the cliff.
Right. If you can say no to me and you can show me the better reason why, you have to come with, I would go into full blown. You want to buy a car? You show me the breakdown, why you think it's justified, how you're going to pay for it. Go into full thing with them. Yeah. Go ahead, prove it to me. I would make them prove it to me. Now, if they had a better idea, if their idea was better than mine, okay, I see your point. Let's go. Yeah. I had to let that go and let them have that value too, because sometimes they were right. Yeah. But they could share their disagreement with me. Teenagers are challenged, man. They just are. But they're supposed to be. Yeah. They're supposed to be. They're figuring out how to be an adult. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important too. But you can have a difference of opinion. You just better do it with respect. Yeah. Because it gets ugly if you don't.
Well, hey, we're at the end of the podcast.
Wow. This was fun. I've wanted to sit and do this with you for so long.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, hey, to finish up, though, I asked everybody, I want your best advice.
My best advice?
And I'm excited for yours.
On anything?
Anything. Just whatever pops in your head. while you're thinking, I always tell it to people, right? Like, I like to do it a little spontaneous, but it's also, it'll be different tomorrow. So it's just whatever you think.
Right now, my best advice in society today with people that are in the struggle, because I think so many people are, and I'm not even sure they're aware of it yet, that grieving what we're in. Right now, in my world, with my clients and with the people I love, we have to buckle down and focus more on our mindset. We have to quadruple what we're allowing in, what we're focusing on, and getting clear on what we stand for. And I think that if we do that daily, if we stay connected to those things and we get into that mindset of who we are and how we show up in the world, I think we can start to turn the tide. It's going to be a titanic shift. But right now, everybody needs to be on their mindset like it was their life, because it is.
Yeah.
It really is. So many people are battling anxiety, depression, being paralyzed, and it's because they're not managing their mind first. So best advice, start with you, start with your mindset. What are you focused on? What are you allowing in? And access your inner superhero, because nobody else can do it for you.
Yeah. I love that.
So there it is.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, honey. It's been an honor. I'm really excited to be here. Always come back for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the President McCormack Podcast, brought to you by McCormack Foundation, Saxton Fund, ADP Lemco, and Professional Floor Systems. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep up with Mark on Instagram @President McCormack.